Thank you everyone for joining. It's a great opportunity here, and I would like to thank Mr. Shankar and NSHM for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences of sports management with all of you. Uh, I think the whole entry towards sports started when, at the age of about 5 to 6 years old, when I started playing tennis at a very young level, and gradually, growing over the years, I have managed to somewhat make it to being a successful, state and a national level player. So right from there, my interest in sport started, and it is at that moment that I started being involved in a lot of sporting activities. I started being a part of a lot of sports events, that took place in the club where I used to play tennis in. The interest towards being with athletes, being with tennis players, watching them play, watching how the crowd came and cheered for them. So that was something that gave me that level of excitement. And even though I could not make it professionally as an athlete myself, but the fact that I was able to you know be around so many players, experience some of it, what the athletes experience, really got me to head towards sports management as a career choice.
Wow.
Was very lucky enough that it worked out well, because I did not have to there was, like, my mind was really focused towards achieving this course and pursuing it somewhere in my life. But that is how it all started, with playing a sport myself and being involved in it.
So sports, Harsh, very honestly speaking, is a very competitive area.
Right.
Meaning that you would have an opponent and you have to have certain skills and also an attitude, which is a never say die attitude.
Right.
So could you share with us some instance where you were a winner or you lost? Most importantly, when you lose, what happens to players and especially you being on the competitive world in the competitive world? Yeah.
Uh, so yes, winning and losing, as everyone says, is a part of the game. And what I believe is that a lot of people commend you that even if you've lost a match or lost a game, people tell you that even though you've lost, participating in that event was it was very great. You participated, and that is what is more important. But I think what I have lived by, what some of my parents or my peers have instilled in me, is that when you play to win. You cannot play with the hope that even if I do lose, oh, and someone is going to tell me that you still participated in it. So I think, for me, when you step onto court, or when you step onto your particular career objective, or to any part of the world you do, so you do it to you achieve the best, and to become the best. So obviously, being an athlete, a former athlete, losing is something that is not, that does not go down well with you. It does not go down well with your parents and your coaching team that has really put in the hours behind you. But every time when you do lose, I think one can just reflect back on what is it that you can learn from it. And either you can, when you lose, either you can just be bogged down and put your head down and walk aside, or you can just stay up with your head held high and reflect back on your losses and wonder that what is it that you learned from that particular loss. So I think that has been something that helps you as an athlete, that when you lose, these are the things that really instill certain ideas in you. And from a particular quote that I've followed for quite some time, is that the most important thing for you is not never losing or failing, but it is about how much you rise up once you fall.
Oh,
So the more
lovely.
important, so the more important factor here is really coming back from your losses, rather than just sitting on it and just spoiling everything for you and for everyone around you. So I just believe losses are something that will be there in everyone's life. You cannot have an easy road to success. So I think all you have to do is just just stay up, stay still, take it in your stride, and just move towards your goal till you have achieved it.
Wonderful. I think that's a very beautiful way of stating it, that you have to learn how to get up every time you fall down. That's a very important area that you said. Another thing which you spoke about is about coaching.
Right.
Now, just as a sports person, one important aspect is perhaps the coaching, the practice, somebody giving you a feedback constantly and making you more and more disciplined.
Right.
So, how does this play a very important role in the sports person's area?
Absolutely. I think, in India specifically, coaches and sports coaching as a profession is something that is not really looked at as importantly as compared to, the Western and European countries. It's today that a lot of people are realizing the importance of having the right coaches for an athlete or for a budding sports person. Because one has to understand that these coaches have experienced what you have, they have studied what they are supposed to teach you. So, a coach forms a very important part of an athlete's life. Simply the reason being it can help the athlete reach to where he wants to. The coach can help the athlete reflect back on whatever mistakes he has made. Because when an athlete, or I'd like to say an example of, say, a tennis player or Roger Federer is playing on court, his coach sitting on in his box will be able to identify better where he is going wrong during the match. So once the match is over, they can come back, they can discuss what went wrong, and that is where the coach's guidance comes into play. And that is why a coach is very important for you. For it could be an individual player, it could be a football team, it could be a cricket team. That the coaches are like an invaluable asset to every team or to every individual, because even though they put in the same number of hours on court as the athlete, they are somehow still, they are at the back. They are at the backstage of it. It is the athlete that's always put up in front. So coaches are the
Okay,
ones that build the athletes. It's very rarely that the coaches are given that due recognition until and unless the athlete has achieved immense glory in the world. Only maybe when they have won a Grand Slam or won the World Cup, that people tend to reflect back and look at the coach's contribution to it. So definitely, I think coaches is something that are supposed to receive their due recognition, and it is a field that is really gaining a lot of momentum today.
wonderful. And one other area, which of course, as we come up to the special area, which is sports being managed now.
Right.
And then how old has been this factoring of managing sports? I mean, we have always known that there have been team managers.
Yeah.
And overall, when we talk about sports management, how has it evolved as a career in the past maybe 2 or 3 decades?
Right.
Or yeah, yeah. If you could
Uh,
throw some light on that.
Yeah. So definitely, sports management today also, if you tell someone that you are doing sports management as a career or as a profession, the often misconception is that, you're just playing a sport. It is something that I have experienced personally. A lot of my peers have experienced it, that whenever you go tell someone you're doing sports management, they always think that, okay, you're just playing another sport, or, it has something to do with playing sport. So, as rightly mentioned, sports management is very niche even today. It is not something that, sports is not an industry as yet.
Yes.
Today it is still a part of the entertainment sector if you look at it holistically.
Oh,
So, sports management as a course, as a degree, and as a field has evolved because of a lot of advancements that have taken place in sport, in Indian sport, in world sport entirely. At a time when people, would just not have, experienced people to run sports events for them today, there is a huge need for sports managers to, run these sports events for you, manage the athletes, manage what brands they are handling, manage, how they are going to get their brands, manage their traveling, take care of them. So everything today all falls under sports management. And when we talk about sports management, it is not just about managing an event or something, a sporting event. It is a much more wide field, and it has a lot of nuances to it than just what we see on television. And once you really delve deep into a sports management course, it is when you realize that the multiple opportunities that lie in your particular domain. And it is tough, definitely. It is niche, it is relatively new in India, but it is something that it is growing. And today, the world sports industry is estimated to be around anywhere between 480 to 610 billion dollars. So that is like a huge figure. And in a lot of developed countries, sports has contributed to about 2 to 4% of the overall employment. So that just goes to show that even aside of being an athlete, there are a lot of other things you can do in sports. And one, just has to study, one has to research, and probably join the right institution, offering you the right courses to just pursue this particular domain and explore its opportunities.
Right. So, Harsh, actually, we are getting a lot of questions. In fact, you really made it so interesting and, as an opportunity, as a career,
Yeah,
so I think it's
right.
a lot of questions. So, would you like to take it now or a little later? I mean,
Whatever, we can take it now, we can take it at the end. Anything works.
okay. So, I think we begin with one question which is very interesting.
Right.
Uh, एक हिंदी में प्रश्न पूछ लिया भाई साहब ने तो उनको शायद हाँ सो ये स्पोर्ट्स मैनेजमेंट करने के लिए मुझे क्या क्या करना होगा
Okay. So I think sports management, since it is relatively new, there is no such particular skill that you need to have in specific to pursue sports management, especially as an undergraduate course. One thing that is very important that everyone must have is the passion to play sport, or the passion to work in sport. Just a few myths that I would like to bust here for everyone who's here is two things. Firstly, sports management does not mean that you will get to play. So if someone is looking to play, then this is not the right place for you. The sports management has nothing to do with you playing a sport, right? And second is that sports will not give you an immense pay. That is one thing that you have to understand today, is that since the sports sector is not yet an industry, there is no defined work opportunities, there is no defined pay structure yet. So two things: first, you cannot play, and second, your initial salaries that you get will not be the best of salaries that you see a lot of your peers passing out from business schools getting. But the thing here is that if you do have the passion for it, if you do feel that you love to be around athletes, you love to be at events, you love to watch sports. If you open the newspaper and you start from the end of it, the last page, which is the sports section, then you should really go ahead with this field, because it motivates you. As long as you love it, then you will not feel like you're working even a single day. So right now, the most important thing for you to understand is that given all these factors, do you still want to be in this industry? Do you still want to pursue this course, and do you have the passion enough that can overcome all the other obstacles that stop you from doing this course?
so one this leader to this as you said it's becoming an industry
Right.
and it's almost $600 million did you say
Yeah.
the total industry
Yeah,
size
it's about, so six. It's supposed to reach. It's supposed to be estimated at around $620 billion by 2023. That's the world sports, economy. So
and you said it's going to provide employment to nearly 2 to 4%.
yes. So right now, the employment percentage in India for sports is roughly about 0.05%, but that rate has till about 2018 there was an increase of about 13% in the employment rate for
Wow.
sports. But again, obviously, due to COVID-19, there are going to be some shortcomings. But again, one has to be optimistic and look at the brighter side of things.
True. And I think that's what the opportunity is. So it's a huge growing area.
Absolutely.
So that's really nice to know that. Wonderful. Okay, I'll just take on the because there are quite a few questions which are
Yes, yes, sure.
right. Okay. So there was another reader question which was there in as far as I think you answered that. Somebody was asked that how do I become a Ranji Trophy player for cricket? So I think as you said, sports management is not about
Yeah,
becoming
absolutely.
a person per se. So I think that answers the question. Okay. Okay. Maybe this one question which is there is what kind of job will we get after doing a graduation program in sports management or doing an after an MBA? Can I get a job at BCCI? So,
Yeah.
so if you could, yeah.
Yes, yes, definitely. So yeah, BCCI again, BCCI is somewhere where every person who's doing a sports management degree wants to ultimately work there. So that is like one of the pinnacle of sports companies. Definitely with its kind of pay and the stature that the organization has. But to whoever's asked that question, there is a lot more than just BCCI that can interest you. Once you do the course. So again, the kind of jobs, there are many. There are about 15, 20 opportunities that can be there, right? Starting from, a sports event manager to a sports sponsorship manager, a sports agent, an athlete manager, a brand manager for an athlete, a sports psychologist, sports marketer, so there are a lot of opportunities that you can do in sport based on what field of interest do you have in sport. So today if you're interested in working around athletes, you can become an athlete manager. And what an athlete manager does is it completely manages the athlete right from its training sessions to its foreign travels, to ensuring that the right funds are provided to the athlete, ensuring that whatever his issues are dealt with clearly, so that you are completely managing that particular athlete right from the time he starts his training till the time he plays his matches. So there is a lot of things that can be done. Secondly, if you're interested in sports events, you want to work in the IPL, there are a lot of things that can happen. You can work as a sports event manager. In these IPL events, you can work with the IPL teams. So there are a lot of opportunities in sport. Again,
So
those,
it,
yeah,
yeah, it is बताओ apart from what is directly related, जैसे कि there is also sports journalism,
right,
there's photography,
absolutely,
there's promotion and media management.
yes,
There's
yeah, like
also thing or the event management part of it.
absolutely,
And
yeah.
I've also heard if you love languages, you could even become a translator.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, sports journalism, today there are a lot of companies that are, focusing on journalism and media management. Sports media management is very important because, today when athletes, become big personalities, you need someone like a media manager or their PR team, which, tells the athlete how he's supposed to speak, what he's supposed to say, how is he supposed to answer to certain questions. So that is where media management in sport really comes into play. Again, like you mentioned, event management. Event management, it is not just the IPL that is happening. There are so many sports events that are taking place. And again, event management is a broad, very broad sector. Under that, there are a lot of other opportunities that you can look at, when you want to pursue sports event management. Sports same thing with sports, photography, because today a lot of people, are there at these big sports events, covering, sports images and providing it to the particular press, and the media. And that is something that gives you immense recognition. It gives you the chance to watch the game with the best views. So what better
Yes.
than that? So, like, there are a lot of things that can be done in sports, right from the financial aspects of sports to events to, like you mentioned, photography, everything.
So, and another factor which I think somebody is just questioning, which is related to the current COVID situation,
Right.
where you have social distancing.
right.
Since you are associated with tennis, somebody is asking the clear question that what do you feel that's going to happen with the US Open and maybe some other sporting events around the world?
Right. So again, this is right now, whether the U.S. Open going ahead or not is something that a lot of players are against. But if people do follow tennis or do follow sports in general, today itself, one of the biggest headlines was, some of the top two tennis players, getting tested for COVID-19 simply because there was a particular tour organized by Novak Djokovic wherein a lot of players from across the world came and took part in it, and on their return, few of them got tested positive. So now this whole debate has suddenly sparked where people are, wanting that once the COVID is completely, abolished, only then should we go ahead with events like the US Open. But as long as I feel that it's very difficult to, yes, social distancing will take place, you will not have fans, but still you are having players come across from all over the world. So it is very important that if you are going ahead with these live events, it is supposed to be done with utmost care and utmost, safety. Because today, if even if one player contracts the virus, then your whole Grand Slam is scrapped, and that is something that can be very embarrassing for the organization as a whole to the rest of the world, and that is something that will not go down very well with the sporting
True.
climate. So right now, personally, in my opinion, I feel that the US Open should not go ahead because a lot of players are still very hesitant on wanting to go and play with the US having over 5 to 10 lakh cases, and there is no sign of it stopping. So
Correct.
definitely, in my opinion, that the US Open should not happen. Maybe we could just wait for a bit, a little longer.
Sure. Uh, okay, just one other feeling which always, whenever I've thought of sports or sporting events, what comes into mind is all the sporting people, whether it's an indoor game like chess,
Right,
or of course a very strenuous sport like cycling, or an individual sport like tennis.
right,
The fitness, both mentally and physically,
right,
plays a very important role in people who are in the sports arena.
right,
So, managing the fitness is not only related to the sporting people, the people who are in the limelight
right,
or who are playing competitive sports.
right,
There is also a large number of people who are wanting to stay fit,
right,
irrespective of whether I'm a sports person or not, which
right,
is the gym culture.
right.
So, is sports management also related to the equipments and the preparation of the gym area and the gymming itself? How do you feel about that, Harsh?
So technically, if you look at it from a holistic point, sports is looked at separately, and the health and fitness industry is looked at separately. But somehow they fall under the same umbrella.
Correct.
And you know, fitness, like you said, today with the current situation, fitness has somehow become more of a necessity than a luxury. Sport has become more of a necessity today than a luxury because people have understood and are realizing the importance to keep fit. The basic level of fitness one needs to attain that their age optimum level requires. So fitness again, there are a lot of sports management degrees like the one we pursued did have its share of fitness and its share of importance given to health and fitness. Wherein today, if someone is interested in working around the fitness area as well, they are given that kind of exposure that tomorrow, if I want to become, say, the manager of a particular gym, or if I want to become a gym trainer, so you are given that kind of basic level of understanding and knowledge that can help you understand what lies in that field. Again, if you really want to work towards it in more depth, you will have to probably pursue some specific courses for it. But in general, sports management does give you an holistic idea about the importance of health and fitness as well, and
Wonderful.
what is it that you need to do if you do want to work in the fitness side of things.
So connected to this area, which is the corporate world, the people who are working in the corporate field, who
Right,
are basically office goers or factory workers.
right,
Time and again, when we hear about the stress that is there
right.
in most of these white collar and blue collar jobs across the globe, whether it's the banking industry or the IT industry or many other areas, is there stress in sports management as well?
Uh, to be very honest, if like I said, if you love what you're doing, there is nothing called stress for you. But
Wow.
definitely you have your stress points, when you're working in the different, fields, because there are times when, things don't really go as per plan, or things don't go as per schedule. And this is something that is widely seen across a lot of, sports events, wherein things don't always happen the way you want them to happen. There are some unforeseen circumstances that may take place. So yes, you do go under stress, but then again, I feel on the bright side of it, it is something that you are trained to do and something that you mentally prepared yourself when you entered into this field. Because today, every domain that you work in does have its share of stress, and it depends on who you, whether you want to call it stress or you want to see it as a challenge. Because today you can have a lot of issues, you can sit and you can, stress about it, or you can look forward to it, take it as one of your other challenges, and just seek on how you want to overcome that particular challenge. So
Okay.
that is where I think, in sports management, stress is not really looked at that majorly, because it's a
So,
very,
so, so I'm just trying to refix the question for everybody.
yeah,
Is playing sports
yeah.
or being in the sports field, like, if you were playing some kind of sports, does it de-stress?
Definitely, sports is, I feel, the biggest de-stressing element. I mean, sports is, the good thing about sports is it can be whatever you want it to be. It can be your de-stressing element. It can be something that, if you're just annoyed at something, you can just go and take it out on court. If you're really happy, you can go play a sport. So for every, emotion that you face, sports could be the solution for it, whether it is good or bad. So I think sports is the. I mean, I'm not propagating here that leave everything and just play sport, but then I feel sports is something that one should always partake in, because it teaches you a lot. I mean, even though you're working in the topmost corporate companies or wherever you are, you should always take time out to play a sport that gives you some sort of relief as a stress, as a mean to de-stress, or a lot of people look at it to make friends, build culture, be in that particular business climate of playing a sport. I mean, one should not play it with that motive that today all my CEOs are playing golf, so I should also take up playing golf. But you rather play another sport where you have interest. It could be even playing cricket with your neighbors down on the streets. So even if it's that, one should partake in some sport. It really helps you build character, very important. And it teaches you a lot of things, a lot of life lessons that a lot of people want to look at. It is something that teaches you a lot.
Yeah, basically, things like team building, teamwork,
Exactly.
the
So
art of losing and winning, the attitude of winning and losing. Yeah.
absolutely.
So, yeah. And of course, staying fit mentally and physically.
Right.
That's a very vital point. I think that's very, very well said. I think the corporate should look at maybe sports management within their organizations as well.
A lot of corporates are today. A lot of corporates are looking. Like a lot of companies today are. There are something called activity breaks in corporates. So
Uh,
a lot of companies are looking at converting those activity breaks into sport breaks or fitness breaks, wherein you're not just taking out time from your work, but you're doing something else that is helping you in return. It's helping you keep fit. It's helping your mind get off work by playing a sport or by engaging in any physical activity. So
right,
that is something that the trend is slowly coming in.
right. So quickly, I just wanted to touch upon one important aspect, which is with the virtual world growing, whether it's online or discussions like this, panel discussions like this, Of course, for the past couple of decades, we have seen what is called as video games,
Right.
moving on to now virtual games, and perhaps maybe I also hear that gaming as such as a career online.
So, yeah.
So, quick view from you as a sports manager. Where do you look at it?
Yeah, so in sports management terms, we call this as esports.
Yeah.
So esports again, it is probably one of the fastest growing sectors, estimated to grow at about 13% as well. And you know, today, like you mentioned, the virtual world is taking over, and especially now that we are all in lockdown, everyone has no option but to shift everything to their digital world. And I feel that digitization is the driver of future growth. So herein, for people who are interested in gaming, who are interested in esports, I'll just tell you all something that in 2017, this was a fact that I had read sometime back, while I was doing my course. In 2017, there were about roughly 4,100 esports tournaments that were taking place, and
Really?
and the prize money in totality for it was $1.1 billion. And and I think maybe last year or year before last, the average competitive tournament prize money was $700 million, and some data has shown that a lot of professional gamers can earn up to $15,000 an hour if just probably showcasing their gaming through live streaming. So, it is really upcoming, that today people are really looking at esports. Sponsorship in esports has catapulted to another level, becoming one of the most and one of the highest contributors of funds towards esports. So again, when you're looking at sports management, esports is another sector that is coming in specially to catering to a generation that is called the Generation Z. And because for them everything is becoming virtual. Today, you know everything, like recently, because of the lockdown, the Grand Prix Formula One organized a virtual Grand Prix which attracted around 30 million viewers. So these are some things that can be really, which just show how important and how big esports as a culture is coming into play, that
But
even the top players are streaming themselves playing these games. So definitely esports is something that is going to make a big entry at this time especially.
true. That's why I think that's a very important thing that we are discussing.
Yeah.
Um, Harsh, I think just to slowly start summing up. Of course, you spoke about being passionate
Right.
about sports, and if a person, an individual, अगर किसी को खेल कूद के साथ जुड़ा रहना चाहते हैं जिंदगी भर, तो स्पोर्ट्स मैनेजमेंट एक बढ़िया करियर है जहाँ पे आप बहुत सारे करियर ऑप्शन यहाँ पे देख सकते हैं और बहुत ही अपॉर्चुनिटीज है, बहुत उम्दा अपॉर्चुनिटीज है. एट द सेम टाइम एज हर्ष सेज, ऐसा नहीं है कि दूसरे कोई मैनेजमेंट अगर कोर्स करते हैं तो उसमें जितना आपको सैलरी ब्रेक मिलेगा शायद वहां शुरू नहीं होगा, बिकॉज स्पोर्ट्स मैनेजमेंट एक इवॉल्विंग फील्ड है, लेकिन इसमें बहुत बढ़िया ग्रोथ अपॉर्चुनिटी है. इट्स वन ऑफ द इंडस्ट्रीज जो बहुत ग्रो करने वाली है. एंड लास्ट जो हर्ष ने बताया इन टर्म्स ऑफ द अपॉर्चुनिटी नॉट ओनली इन द ट्रेडिशनल स्पोर्ट्स एरिया, एक कॉर्पोरेट स्पोर्ट्स में भी एक बहुत सारा जहाँ पे डी स्ट्रेसिंग का काम होने वाला है. And the more important thing is, very importantly, which is related to the online e-sports, which is going to become a big thing for tomorrow, and that is already evolved. And as he rightly said, the kind of prize money which is there, it is just amazing. So this is as far as being prepared for these kind of careers, and it's a great opportunity to be in as soon as possible. And coming back to, of course, supposing I'm interested, Harsh, to join sports management. Now, what should be the basic criteria the institute should provide? What kind of curriculum? What kind of industry connects? What are the sports companies which are there in India with which we can think about it? So, thoda bahut agar if you can tell us about it, yeah.
So, with the industry going, again, sports management courses and, colleges offering sports management courses have really, come up in large numbers today. One like NSHM itself providing a great BBA program on sports management, a course where I studied, and Symbiosis providing MBA in sports management. So sports management, again, the right college, in my opinion, should focus on what the industry demands. Today for the sports industry is very dynamic in nature. So I feel at the very outset, you should have the basic skills that which every other management course has. It should not be any different, right from financial accounting to statistics to organizational behavior, management and its principles. Everything should be provided by that institution, and slowly looking at certain areas of sports, which are more generally, like you mentioned, event management, looking at sports, the governments, so how the sports organizations are run, you know basic aspects of sports that can be taught and that can be catapulted in the final year with a specialization in sports, wherein one can offer, 5 to 6 different specializations that the student may be interested in. For example, if a student is interested in sports events, so sports events could be, one of the specializations. If a student is interested in working, towards the marketing of sports, helping companies market their sports goods, or, helping companies market their sports events. So, sports marketing could be, a field. Again, a very interesting field, which is not really touched upon is, sports analytics. You know, a lot of people are very interested in analyzing sports matches, sports games, as to why, what is the the method behind the madness. So, today, players, cricket teams, cricketers coming playing, there is a certain analytics aspect to it involved, So sports analytics could be one of your specializations. Like I mentioned, athlete management. Again, so there are a lot of specializations that one can look at, and within those, you can really include the core elements of sport. And other than that, very important for sports, and especially to people who have not worked in sports before and are just starting on their course, ample amount of networking opportunities. There are a lot of sports, you know, forums and sports, networking platforms that take place across India. Probably give the students a chance to visit those particular networking forums, meet the people there, hear what is being said at those platforms. Really helps the student to understand, what is it that they want to do. It helps them meet the right people in the industry. So tomorrow, if there is a particular student who's interested in working in, say, BCCI, so these platforms have a lot of top-notch people from these companies coming and visiting. So you get a chance to meet people. You get a chance to it's not always good to straight away go there and ask them that I want a job, but then at least you get to know, you get to meet that person, and later on it depends on you how well you can initiate a conversation with them, and then you can easily speak to that person through mail and put forward what you have done and see whether you have an opportunity. you know and secondly, another important thing is experience opportunities that institutions should have. A lot of sports events take place, a lot of sports games take place, probably providing the students, to go there to, volunteer in those, opportunities, work as interns with those sports events, give them a hands-on experience of what they can expect once they graduate. This will be like a trailer for them. So what happens is it helps the students understand whether, is this the field of interest do they really want to be in. Maybe they're passionate about sports, but then if you really feel that you can't take it working, you feel it's too hectic, it's still unstructured, that experience is going to help you understand, whether this is my true calling or not. So that is very important for the institutions. And talking about companies, there are multiple companies, right, starting from BCCI. You have athlete management companies like Luxury Sports, Baseline Ventures. There is something called the Olympic Gold Quest. They work with top-notch Olympic athletes. Again, Baseline Venture works with athletes like PV Sindhu, Prithvi Shaw. So, there are a lot of, sports event companies like DNA Networks. So DNA Networks today manages most of the IPL teams, and a
So
company
again,
which, yeah,
because the industry is growing,
Absolutely.
opportunities are growing, so the organizations are also investing into it.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
And in that way, even the government,
yeah,
has taken the Khelo India Khelo, with which I understand you
yeah,
were associated briefly.
yeah.
So there
So the
is a
Khelo India,
government which is also
yes,
get talent from the rural areas.
absolutely. So, grassroots development of
Tell us
sport.
about the talent hunting bit as well.
Yeah. So, grassroots development of sport is something that is given extreme importance today in India because through this Khelo India program, it is giving an opportunity to a lot of grassroots athletes to come into the fray and, come into the limelight, wherein the right talent can be identified and nurtured to become sports persons in the future. And, the government has invested about 1700 plus crores into this Khelo India scheme, which just goes to show that even today that the government is slowly looking at sports as not only a field of wherein of producing athletes, but even a field of producing employment to a lot of people. So overall, with certain things like the performance of a lot of Indian players internationally, today PV Sindhu winning the Olympic medals, Sakshi Malik winning the Olympics, it is slowly giving rise to a lot of sports which weren't very popular initially. And because of that, a lot of corporates are developing interest, pooling in money, which is helping organize a lot of leagues.
Correct.
2008, the IPL started, and today you have a league for almost each and every sport. And something that goes behind the scene, that is the sponsorship deals, the
Yes.
broadcasting rights are at huge costs. Star signing a 16,000 crore deal with the IPL for 5 years. That just goes to show the amount of money that is being pulled into sports today. So definitely the industry is growing, the technology is growing. It's the I feel a lot of people will say that sports is it's not the right time now, but then I feel in the next few years, maybe 2 to 3 or maybe more, because of the COVID, it's the best time to be in sport because you can see it grow and you can contribute it to it growing.
So one final from your own personal experience, to many of the parents, uh, they think that sports management
Right,
is not something which is known, and therefore they are not willing to perhaps send their students, children,
right,
to these kind of career options, which is considered non-conventional.
right.
So, how do you take that? I mean, you yourself are a very strong example of a student who, of course, was into active sports. You played into competitive areas. You won a lot of tournaments. And yet, when you decided to get into sports management per se,
Right.
the challenges one faces, as a parent,
Right.
and how or what is it that you would like to tell parents around?
Yeah. The very honestly, if my example is taken here, I somewhat feel that I was fortunate enough because I did not have to, sit and justify anything to my parents because, you know, luckily, fortunately, my parents were extremely supportive of me doing this course. They knew that, since I have been involved in sports and, my father himself, having worked in sports, sports organizations, knew that there is a future to this industry. You know, me getting, and also I was getting the right guidance, which really helped me understand that this is where I want to be. But again, when I was a student back and, I was pursuing my course, I happened to meet a lot of peers which had to do some heavy convincing to their parents, making them understand, what this course is all about and what the future for this particular field is. And the most common thing that you get to hear is कि sports management में क्या है? It's ultimately you're playing. Something that I had to convince my grandmother because when I told her I'm pursuing sports management, she said, you've been playing all these 12, 13 years. Why are you still playing again? So it requires someone that you really need to sit down. You need to make them understand that what lies ahead. You need to sit, you need to do your. So I feel for every student who wants to pursue sports management, who has who thinks it's going to be difficult for them to convince their parents, you first do your own research. you understand that firstly, your first and most important question is why sports management
Yeah.
over, something else. Because that is the first thing your parents will ask you, okay, wow, what drove you to this particular course? So that's what. So you need to be ready with these answers. Why sports management? Second is what's in it for me. Third is, where do I see myself after 3 years or 2 years after doing a BBA or an MBA? And the next thing is, given the obstacles, like maybe a less pay, currently, a little unstructured, what is it that I can do in spite of all of these things? And am I still ready to go ahead with these obstacles in my way? So once you have this research ready on your part, it becomes very easier for you to convince your parents. And another thing, you can help them because today, since sports management is new, a lot of our parents will not be aware of how the industry works, what the industry, compound annual growth rate is, a lot of instances like that. So if you can sit down, make a note of all of that, do your research, and then probably, make your parents sit and just put it out there to them, that this is what I want to do, this is where I see myself, this is what the industry offers, these are my choice of colleges, this is what the course is, and this is what I can get out of it, and this is where my ultimate goal is. So I think once you have built a whole graph to your entire future of sports management, then it becomes a little more easier not only for you to convince your parents, but it becomes easier for you as well because then you have a pathway to follow. You know that this is ultimately what I want to do. So you remain focused on your path, you remain focused on your objective of achieving excellence in this particular field. So I think parents will find it a little tough because in my experience, I've had peers who have graduated in engineering, who have worked in IT firms for 3 years and who were my classmates doing sports management. So definitely, for someone like them having a good job, working 3 years, in companies like TCS, why would you want to leave that and come back to do an MBA in sport, wherein there is no guarantee of you getting the same pay? So that is where you have to, prove that your passion, your determination for doing this lies above all the other things that you probably got working in one of those companies.
Uh,
So I think that
right.
is
Thank
where,
you, Shankar. I think that was a right, beautiful way of saying it.
yeah,
Because today, sports management is not only you could be a medical practitioner with
right,
sports.
right,
You could be an engineer who is perhaps making the various applications and softwares related to sporting people,
right,
how to improve their quality or the analytics, as Harsh was saying.
right,
And you could be a commerce student who could be managing the finances of sports.
right.
So a lot of areas which are opening up because sports has moved away from the entertainment area,
Yeah,
serious profession. Am I right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Like sports is looked at as an entertainment by a lot of people, but then still, people working in it can understand the trajectory that sports is getting today, how high it is going. And it's very simple that for everyone who's wanting to do sports management, like I have my peers who probably are working in, banking firms and, have, some fancy titles, but then, you can still see few of them, on a Sunday night, they still, wonder that, oh God, it's Monday, I have to go for work. But then, whatever field you choose, as long as, you don't feel that, that, oh God, I have to go to work. If you can do that, then, I mean, if that's your passion towards sports, then I don't think it will matter to you any longer as to what your parents are saying or, what your peers are doing. Because even though it may be a little slow, even though you may not have fancy titles, in some time you will be happy. You will be happy with what you're doing, and the money will slowly come in. This is not the first day. You can't enter and expect to be a crorepati or a billionaire. It will take time, but at least on the flip side of it, you're happy with what you're doing.
So there is one question which I think Mr. Sarivan Pandey is trying to ask us,
Yeah,
which is how do you see the sponsorship money going with the COVID curve? Would you like to take that?
yeah. So again, this is something that is talked about a lot. That how is sports going to come back after COVID, and what is going to happen with sponsorship, and what about, are we going to get to watch matches in stadiums again? So some of the common questions that have been prevalent for the last 3 months. Again, sponsorship is something that again is a very important criteria for all sports events, sports bodies. But definitely, given the current situation, I could say the curve will not fall. Maybe it may just remain flat. Hopefully, the COVID curve also becomes flat very soon. But the thing is here is that sponsorship will ultimately grow. The reason being, this time, a lot of companies, a lot of people working in sport are really missing out being in action, missing out working. And I feel, once things become normal, once the economic situation becomes a little normal, people will come back with full force. People will come back stronger and better than before, because this unforeseen break has been a break in the momentum of the growth for sport. So I feel, once everyone comes back from it, it is going to be much bigger. I People talk about a lot of negative aspects of sport, but I just feel that sports has survived many crises before. It has survived the World War I, it has survived World War II. It has survived a lot of crises in the past, and sports is something that has been the solution for soldiers back then. So why not now? So I think sports is here to stay. Definitely, there will be changes. There will be certain, new things we'll get to see. Safety will be given a very big importance right now. Sports events may start focusing a lot towards community mindedness. More than just making big money and showing the glory of events. So slowly things will shift a bit, but then I don't see the industry or the sponsors or broadcasters, it going down. Definitely, there will be a downward slope for each and every economy, each and every domain today, because simply because of the economy going down. Because the only person in India right now who's doing well is Mukesh Ambani, and the rest everyone has been complaining about how the economy is going down. So definitely, everywhere something is going to go down, but then we have to be positive about it and look at the brighter side of things.
We take the cue from sports. Every time we fall down, we must learn how to get up again. I
Absolutely.
think that's the learning that we need to do, get from sports. Thank you so much, Harsh. It was really wonderful conversing with you today. And it's been very insightful because you have been, I mean, you're the young and the thick of things. You're not a gray haired person who's seen it all and done it all, but you're actually doing it. And that's the beauty of Harsh. And I really wish you the very best because you've got a long journey to go. And I'm sure that you will actually make a lot of difference in the world of sports and a lot of things which will make a difference to the people who are following up and coming with you. Okay, so there were a few questions that we could answer in today's panel. Okay, but I think we will stop it here. And thank you once again.